So in this video, I wanted to introduce you to scales, right? So this is an architect's scale. Make sure you can see it. And it is not a ruler. It's a scale. It has 11 different scales on this. And this is used for doing detailed work, right? So obviously architects use this because we need to show feet and inches. So each one of these scales is, shows a different largeness of a drawing, and the individual or the notations along the main sides of the scales are feet, and then each scale has subdivisions of a foot on the ends, right? So before you get to 0, this is showing a foot. At this scale, this is showing a foot. At this half-inch scale, which is what we're using for this project, this is a foot. So you can see that the feet get larger, and that means we can show more detail. So we're using half-inch scale for this project, and so we're going to use the scale that has half-inch at the end of the scale. So, what's a little confusing about this is there's 2 scales on most of the sides. So on this one, there's half-inch, and there's also the inch. The inch reads from the left side of the scale to the right, so you can see the number is 0, and then it goes 1, 2, 3. So that's for the 1-inch scale. For the half-inch scale that we're using, we're actually going from the right to the left. So you just need to look at the increase in numbers. So if we're using half-inch, we start at 0. This means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So hopefully that makes sense. So these are the feet, and then to the right of the 0 on this scale, that's the subdivisions of a foot. So these are the inches. So if we wanted to show something, 3 feet 10 and a half inches, or at least 3 feet 10 inches, we can. And so there's no numbers here because we can't, it'd be too small, it'd be jumbled. So this is 0, this is 12. The first thing you want to do is find the middle, and that is 6 inches. And then if you, again, subdivide this first half, so if this is 6 and this is 0, this longer tick mark is 3. And then if this is 6 and this is 12, this longer tick mark is 9, right? And so that means that the medium length tick marks are the inches. So it's I haven't had caffeine this morning for a reason, but it's 1, 2, 3 for the longer tick mark, 4, 5, 6 for the longer tick mark, 7, 8, 9 for the longer tick mark, 10, 11, 12. So hopefully that makes sense. So at the scale that we're doing, your 10 by 20 foot space takes up almost a whole 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, which is great. That means the plants are going to be really big, right? So that'll give you a chance to play with some graphics and to show a little more detail and to try this stylized aspect of drawing plants that I'll talk about in a later video. So what this means is if we're drawing, let's say I did if I wanted to draw a 3-foot plant, I would find my half-inch scale, and I'm going to find the circle that has a 3-foot diameter. So it's not here, that's 2.5. That's just under 3. That looks good, right? So, and also I did a little cheat this morning just to make sure. So this is going to be a 3-foot wide plant, whatever that is. It might be a really big perennial. Oops, I just smeared. It might be a 3-foot wide shrub. But when we draw plants, when we finally get to the point of putting the circle template down, that should be the full spread. Especially if it's perennials and shrubs, we want to show the full spread because we need to know that we're not overcrowding a bed, right? So in terms of some other sizes, I was looking for a 2-foot wide plant, so that would be a lot of perennials. I need to go bigger. So there, duh, it would be an inch, right? It'd be an inch, so that actually is a 2 feet wide plant. A 1 foot wide plant is going to be the half-inch. So here's 1 foot wide, right? So that gives you an idea of scale. Now, not to confuse you too much, but when you start designing this space, we're not going to be jumping in with a circle template, right? You might want to back up and do a lot of quick ideas on paper. So sometimes I will like bubble out an area saying I want a grouping of plants to go like this, and then maybe I want something big in the middle. I want another group of plants to kind of wrap around like this. And I might do like generic bubbles like that just to like claim space and to see a flow. It takes a lot less time to do that. If you jump right into this, you're going to change and you're going to do a lot of erasing or a lot of layers of trace, which isn't necessarily bad. However, most of us don't have that luxury of time, right? The other way I might jump in is just by coming in and loosely doing plants. And you can see that it's loose when I first start. I start drawing very lightly, and then as I like something, I'll darken it a little bit. Or I might just try to keep it kind of light because I will go back over with a circle template later. And now my cat is coming in to say hello. He's ready for his second breakfast. He's not getting it. And then maybe I'll do a little something in here. Anyway, so you can see it's really loose to begin with. And then I would come in later with my circle templates and say, okay, actually I want it about this size. And if those are all the same plant, I need to make sure that I'm actually drawing them the same size, right? And you can see that when I do that, it makes a lot of course corrections. Like I started coming way out here, so, and then I would ink on top of that and then erase, right? So that's why I want you guys drawing at this scale. But just to give you a little, I guess to show you some different scales. Let's say, let me make sure this is lined up so you can see. Let's say we wanted to do quarter scale, right? So that's another scale that we use. Oops, sorry, knocked the camera. It's going to be a bumpy ride, people. I hope you took your Dramamine this morning. So we have a 1/2 inch scale here. Quarter inch scale. And we use this a lot for doing small detailed spaces as well. And we'll also use it for courtyard sized spaces, so we can still show detail with plants and we can show hardscape in detail, right? So for our project that we're currently working on, I'm gonna actually cheat a little bit. So I'm going from, let me do it reverse. Hopefully you can see this. Sorry, I'm trying a new camera this morning and it's a little wonky. So I want to try, and it's hard for me to see if you can see this. Okay, so I'm going to turn the scale upside down so you can see we're using the quarter. I'm going to make a tick mark at 0, and then I'm going to follow the increasing numbers up to 20, which is here. And I always want to cheat and use my scale as a straight edge, but we don't want to do that because if you're using pen, you can like get ink on your scale. So actually I like to use this parallel glider, and so I line it up with the edge of my paper, and when I pull it down it keeps things parallel, which is fabulous. So I'm going to connect my dots, and I went over a little bit, not a big deal. So that's 20 feet. I'm going to do the 10, so turn my scale around, and I'm going to line up the 0 with the first line I did, and I'm going to go down to the 10, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops, now I'm with my paper. So 10 is here. And I want to do the same thing. So I just want to make sure that I'm drawing a square, or a rectangle in this case. Right, so I'm going to connect my dots, connect my lines. Okay, went over there, so I'm a little bit off. It's all right. And then I can get the other 20 by lining up the parallel glider with the first line I drew and running it down, because I know that it's even, because that's what the little wheelies do, is there's a little rubber gripper thing so it's not moving. And then I can do the same for this. Get it lined up, move it down, find the accurate line that I drew here, and bring it down. So this is your, hopefully you saw all of that. Okay, so this would be your 10 by 20 foot space. at 1/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. That's how we denote scales, because we're that specific. We always would want to show feet in inches. And so another way of saying that scale is there's 4 feet per inch, if that makes more sense to you visually. So another scale that we use quite commonly in landscape design is the other end of that same side of the scale, and that's the 1/8 inch scale. So that means there's 8 feet in an inch. So we typically use this for whole properties or half of properties. Like if you're only hired to design a front yard or a backyard, we might use 1/8 scale. Or we also might use 1/4 scale. It depends on the size of the property. So if we're going to show our space in that scale, and just to speed things up a little bit, let me make sure you can see this. So at 1/8 scale, I find the 0, I run my line over to the 20. I'm going to try to do this and make it square. I'm going to find the 10, so it's 8, 9, 10. Oops, that's not at all square. I'm kind of eyeballing with the edge of the paper. And then I can try to eyeball it here as well. That looks pretty good. And then you connect it. So I'm off a little bit, but it's okay. All right, so this is your 10 by 20 foot space at 1/8 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches, or 8 feet per inch. So you can see if we did the same plants that we did at the 1/2 inch scale, let's go up to the 1/4 scale. We're going to find our 3 foot plant. That would be here. So here's our 3 foot plant. And then we want to measure our 2 foot plant. Okay. That's here. One foot plant is the 1/4. And then if we change that to the 1/8 scale plan, a 3 foot plant is this size. And then a 2 foot plant is the 1/4. And then a 1 foot plant is the 1/8. So 2, 1, right? So you can see that if we wanted to show smaller plant massings, the 1/8 scale is way too small, right? So that's not helpful at all. So you need to pick the scale that's the most helpful. It's going to feel, if those of you who have done some designing before, the 1/2 inch is going to feel really cartoony, but that's okay. And I'll show you how I draw some various graphics in another video, but I want you at this scale for this project. But I just wanted to show you the range. So we do this for really detailed plantings. A lot of times it's used for construction details. It's a little odd to use this, I'll just be honest, but there's a method to my madness. 1/4 scale can also show some detail, quite a bit of detail with plants and hardscape. and then we would see less detail with the 1/8 inch, right? But so we use those for showing larger areas so we can fit it onto a sheet of paper. Now, one other thing I wanted to talk about in this video is drawing trees, right? So you probably, depending on what trees you use in your design, and probably you can't get more than one tree in your design. You can tell me what the context is, but if we're going back to just this scale, the 1/2 inch, the largest tree, for example, on my circle template would be only 6 feet across. And most likely the smallest tree you would have, unless you're doing a fastigiate or columnar tree, is probably 10, maybe 12. So this is too small. So if that happens, the tool that you're going to need is this compass, right? So I figure out the diameter that I want, and let's see, let's say we want to do a 10-foot wide tree. So I'm going to put my scale down and I line one end of the compass with the 0, and then I'm using this wheel in the middle to open it up to 10. Play intermission music. And so again, I just make sure. So I'm at the 0 and I've counted up my scale increments up to the 10-foot mark. And so that is a 10-foot wide tree. So when you put it down to make your tree, you can see that it's a 10-foot wide tree, which is not big at all. You're only going to be able to show part of it, right? So, and that's okay. So it might just be that you take a heavier pen. I'm going to use a Sharpie marker so you can see it. And I just do this, I do a caffeinated squiggle for a lot of things. And in this, only in as much as what I'm showing you today, I'll use that for this. And then, you want to say where the center of the tree is. So if the trunk is in your garden, you would want to show it. It might be outside of your garden space. That's also fine. But it's fine to just show part, right? And when I show you how to do the elevations in the next video and some other massings, I'll show how you show that from the side. So until then.